I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Boulder Valley Board of Education for Tuesday, April 25th, 2017. Laura, could you please call the roll?
Belval. Here. Benford. Here. Fuqua.
Here.
Garcia. Here. Gebhardt. Here. Marquis. Here. Myers.
Here. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. We're glad to see you here tonight. Remind everybody that the mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to create challenging, meaningful, and engaging learning opportunities so that all children thrive and are prepared for successful, civically engaged lives. And thank you for accommodating our late start tonight. We'll begin, as always, with the superintendent's report. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, President Fuqua, members of the board, staff and community members, present and watching on television. The past few weeks have noted accomplishments by Boulder Valley School District students past and present. I will highlight a few of them now. First, I am pleased to report that students from BVSD did well at the regional and national Scholastic Art and Writing Awards this year. In fact, 3 of our students won a national award, including 1 gold medal winner. BVSD national award winners include Angela Zhu, 12th grade, Fairview High School silver medal, Lucy Collins, 9th grade, Fairview High School silver medal, Madeline Rumbach, 12th grade, Monarch High School gold medal. Madeline's painting, which earned the gold medal, will be exhibited at a national award ceremony at Carnegie Hall in New York City on June 8th. This award recognizes her painting as being part of the top 1% of the submitted works of art nationally. Madeline has since been contacted by San Francisco Art Institute, where she will be provided with scholarship opportunities. The Scholastic Art and Writing Awards is coordinated by the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, a not-for-profit organization. Since 1923, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards have recognized the talent of our nation's youth and provided opportunities for creative teens to be celebrated. Congratulations to these 3 young ladies. Second, 39 Boulder Valley School District schools were recognized by federal and state officials on April 12th at a ceremony at Elisa Sanchez International Elementary School in Lafayette for their commitment to providing healthy school nutrition. These schools were honored for making exemplary progress through leadership and teamwork in advancing nutrition standards for students every day. Third, I think if you go outside on a clear night, not tonight necessarily, you might see the International Space Station orbiting the Earth. Centaurus High School students and community members were treated and cheered last Thursday during a NASA live TV feed that was narrated by veteran astronaut Kjell Lindgren. The cheering reached its peak at 9:25 a.m. when astronaut, Louisville native, and 1972 Centaurus High School graduate Jack Fisher docked with and pushed himself through the hatch of the ISS, which orbits 250 miles above the Earth. Finally, at the board's request, BVSD Communications Director Briggs Gamblin will provide a legislative update as an information item later in the meeting. Still, we should note that the state legislature has about 15 calendar days before it must adjourn on May 10th. These last 2 weeks will prove to be very hectic. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Questions, comments? If not, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is public participation. The board recognizes the value of public comment on issues related to the operation of the schools. To ensure that our meeting is conducted in an orderly manner, we ask that persons who address the board confine your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the school district. Speakers on agenda items will be heard first, followed by those speaking to non-agenda items. Limit your presentation to 2 minutes. If we go over the first hour, public comment will continue at the end of the meeting. We do have a lot of people signed up, so if you can keep your presentations to time, that'll help everybody be heard in a timely fashion. Recognize that students often attend or view our meetings. Speakers' remarks, therefore, should be suitable for an audience that includes kindergarten through 12th grade students. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement that is unrelated to the business of the district or inappropriate for K-12 students. There is a lighting system on the podium. It starts at green when your 2 minutes begins, turns yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and turns red at the end. When the light turns red, please wrap up your comments so that the board can hear from the maximum number of speakers. Looks like we don't have any speakers on agenda items tonight, so we will move to the non-agenda item speakers. Our first speaker is Jessica Ward, who will be followed by Kelly Reeser. Ms. Ward, are you with us tonight? Jessica Ward. All right. If Ms. Ward is not present, is Kelly Reeser in the... good evening and welcome. Tina Mew will be after Kelly.
That's right. Well, good evening, Board of Directors, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I have enjoyed an opportunity to meet most of you, and some of you were out at our campus a month or so ago, so appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm here tonight as the leader of Boulder Valley's largest charter school to express my strong support for Dr. Bruce Messenger and the leadership he has provided to the district for the past 6 years. Peak to Peak has been in operation for 17 years now, and during that time we have negotiated our charter contract with the district 4 times. I had the opportunity to work closely with Dr. Messenger as well as several members of the cabinet, including Melissa Barber, Bill Sutter, and Leslie Stafford during our most recent contract negotiation in 2015. We've also worked together to resolve questions that arose for our charter school in connection with the recent bond and mill levy ballot issues. Through all of these interactions, and there have been many, I have come to know Dr. Messenger as someone who is straightforward, ethical, professional, and highly collaborative. While Peak to Peak's relationship with the district has been somewhat contentious in the past, we now enjoy a collegial and collaborative connection thanks largely to the efforts of Dr. Messenger and his staff. I firmly believe that this positive relationship benefits the district as well as the hundreds of students and families that we serve directly as we provide a high-quality K-12 option that many parents want for their children. I appreciate the fact that Dr. Messenger understands that our students are part of the Boulder Valley family, just like students at all other Boulder Valley schools. Dr. Messenger is an excellent leader, and Boulder Valley is fortunate to have him. As a further testament to the collaborative atmosphere that Dr. Messenger has created in the district, I am pleased to be here with Tina Mew, whom you all know as the president of the Boulder Valley Education Association. Now, in any other school district, you might find it highly unusual for the leader of a charter school to be standing with the leader of the teachers union. However, we're making a joint statement to the Board of Education tonight. Tina and I share a common high regard for Dr. Messenger and the many positive contributions he has made to the district. We wanted to address you together so you can see an example of what is possible in a district that has a culture that is open and professionally supportive to a wide variety of stakeholders. This is the kind of culture that Dr. Messenger has created.
Thank you, Kelly, and hello, President Fuqua and members of the board. I'm Tina Mew, President of the Boulder Valley Education Association. I echo Kelly's sentiments about the culture created here. We represent different parts of the BVSD community that are enjoying harmonious relationships as a direct result of Dr. Messenger's leadership. We feel strongly that his work must be allowed to continue, and the board must carefully consider how to proceed from here. At the behest of the BVEA governing bodies, I'm here with other BVEA and community members to speak and be present tonight in support of Dr. Messenger and transparent board process. BVEA understands that an investigation is underway. We have no information about the allegations involved. What we do know about is Bruce Messenger's significant contribution to BVSD and the passion and integrity he's brought to the work. BVSD is an outstanding district, but our success is threatened by the absence of the leader who set so much of this in motion. We ask you to carefully consider the necessity of Dr. Messenger's continued leadership. Your secrecy in the process of placing our superintendent on administrative leave and in making decisions that followed is concerning. While we appreciate the need for discretion, some decisions should have been made in public. We challenge the opinion that you are within your rights to hide actions from the community. We ask you to carefully consider how this practice is damaging employee morale and community confidence. I appeal to you to salvage this situation. You have the opportunity to adhere to the 30-day timeline you communicated initially and minimize further disruption caused by our superintendent's absence. I ask you to consider carefully streamlining the investigation. When the results of the investigation are complete, you'll decide consequences appropriate to the conclusions. I ask you to consider carefully what decisions you should make to deal fairly with everyone involved, to restore our leadership to BVSD, and to repair damaged morale and community goodwill. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jackie Moore, and after Jackie Moore will be Lisa O'Brien. Ms. Moore, welcome. Good evening.
Thanks. I'm a parent of students at Ryan Elementary, and I'm honored to be here about dyslexia and early intervention for dyslexia. Early discovery is meaningful to me because I went through school with undiagnosed ADD. My daughter was 4. I did not expect to be emotional. My daughter was 4 when I began to ask about dyslexia, and teachers said to me, all kids just develop differently, which I know to be true, but I knew it was more than that. At 6, she still couldn't recognize all of her letters and associate them with the sounds that they made. By the end of kindergarten, her report card said she had learned to associate them with the sounds and that she had learned them all. But I knew at home she still was struggling. It was dyslexia. I already didn't detect it. I called and talked to them, and they said it's not supposed to screen for dyslexia. Her teachers, who I loved through no fault of their own, were not trained to know what to look for. I love this book. So it's unlocking the hidden potential of the dyslexic brain. Simplifying dyslexia as a problem with reading is like looking at autism as a problem with speaking. It has a full spectrum too. Of course, there's, expect like difficulties with fluency and phonics, but also struggles with memory, processing speed, auditory, word retrieval sequencing. And the big player here is phonemic awareness. Different than phonics, it's phonemes, which is the ability to hear and manipulate the sounds in spoken word and the understanding that spoken words and syllables are made up of sequences of speech sounds. This is why dyslexic kids need structured literacy programs like the Orton-Gillingham approach that actually retrain the brain's structure, and so that the sound processing system, so the dyslexic kids can segment words and discriminate sounds. My daughter's been greatly helped by a computer auditory training program called Fast for Word. I ran into a kindergarten teacher who rejoiced that I was coming tonight. She said, statistically speaking, Jackie, 20% of my students have dyslexia, and I'm not trained to recognize who they are or what to do for them. Sometimes I just cry, knowing that they're leaving my class unprepared. She agreed that iReady does not screen for dyslexia and wishes, how did that happen? And wishes that, can I finish this paragraph? Yes, okay. And wishes that they could all be screened. We've got to support our teachers. Our current system is failing these students, and caring teachers are left by the sidelines. These dyslexia tools are like Swiss Army knives. They will help lots of other kids too. ADD, sensory processing, auditory processing, even motor development. I believe that confidence and learning will go up, and test scores will go up, and bullying and acting out will decrease, and that resources we already invest in will be put to new uses in powerful ways because teachers will know more ways to help more kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lisa O'Brien. After Lisa O'Brien will be Judy Stone. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Lisa, and I am proud to be a BVSD educator for 10 years. You have a hard job. Every other week, citizens come and make demands of you, advocating for their children and the need to, for example, maintain the LLI reading intervention program or to support students with dyslexia. There's a limited amount of money to spend on the unlimited needs of our students and families as we all strive to provide the best education possible in a world where one size will never fit all. With all that said, we must be doing something right because BVSD has the luxury of having many more qualified applicants for any position that opens. Teachers want to be here. Families want to live here, and every time we ask, citizens want to support the work we do. I believe that one very influential factor in this continued support is our Superintendent, Bruce Messenger, and what he has done for Boulder Valley. He has encouraged the district-wide consensus work, a transparent process that encourages open, honest communication among all the stakeholders. This open communication and a commitment to fair, transparent protocols are paramount to the collaborative relationship that exists between teachers and administration. I believe this collaborative relationship inspires the citizens of Boulder Valley to support the work of BVSD. Without it, we become just another school district in Colorado. Our superintendent, Bruce Messenger, and our association leadership are the reasons our district is great. They and the relationship they foster is what makes me proud to be a BVSD educator. Some of the teachers at my school Whittier could not make it tonight. I'd like to share their thoughts with you. Dear Board of Education, we are a group of teachers here at Whittier International Elementary School, and we are not in agreement with the secretive manner in which you are dealing with this apparent issue regarding our superintendent. Public schools are inherently open to all, and this process you have initiated does not seem appropriate or productive. Although you may feel like you are acting in the best interest of our district, we value and support our superintendent, and this does not feel right by any way measurable. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Judy Stone. After Ms. Stone will be Wendy Kirkpatrick. Hello, welcome.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to me and the other teachers and parents from our invested community. I am a proud 11-year teacher in the Boulder Valley Schools District, and I am so excited that I had the opportunity and continue to have the opportunity to work under such collaborative leadership. Through this collaboration led by Dr. Bruce Messenger, we have been able to pass bond levies and other construction areas that have really benefited all of our students. I myself am a volunteer on a number of committees with the Success Effect, one of which is the Assessment Advisory Committee. It is through the collaboration led by Dr. Bruce Messenger that has led our collaboration in developing comprehensive district-wide assessments so that all of our students can be measured in a meaningful way. We've had the opportunity to get together with teachers, administrators, and community members from around the district to look at how we assess our students and to ensure that all students throughout the district will be assessed in similar manners. The other aspect of the Success Effect that I am very proud to be a part of is the engagement of social emotional learning in our daily education settings. It is through social emotional learning that we can help our students develop the self-awareness to be self-guides through a very complicated world we live in today. As we teach children to develop their social emotional health, they become better decision makers and are able to work more collaboratively to achieve more success. And again, this is due to the efforts of Dr. Bruce Messenger and all his efforts in creating a very collaborative and open environment. And I urge you to continue to keep Dr. Bruce Messenger by our sides and continue with our leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wendy Kirkpatrick is next, and after Ms. Kirkpatrick will be McDavid Henderson. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your service and for listening to all these comments. I'm the mother of 2 dyslexic students and a teacher and also a BVEA member. I'm speaking tonight as a teacher and a community member. I have 21 years of teaching experience. In 2002, I taught first grade at Sanchez Elementary. I had a spunky little girl that year. I'll call her Molly. Molly was bright, curious, and made friends easily. I remember her ending that year a little bit below grade level in reading, but nothing to be alarmed about. Molly's mother valued education, was involved in the classroom, and wanted the best for her. She was a single mom trying to make ends meet in Boulder County. I ran into her mother working a minimum wage job in Lafayette a couple years ago. I was so excited to hear about where Molly had landed. What college was she attending? What were her passions? Her mother sadly told me that Molly had dropped out of a BVSD school. She went on to say that Molly was a poor reader. She admitted that reading was hard for her too, and she thought she was probably dyslexic. In 2002, I was not yet a mother. I hadn't traveled the agonizing journey through dyslexia as a parent. I knew nothing about how to spot warning signs and how to best intervene. I failed Molly. We all failed Molly. As a school board, you have an obligation to our community to prepare students to be literate citizens who will contribute to our society. Molly is not alone. The National Council of Learning Disabilities estimates that 68% of the students with unidentified learning disabilities, such as dyslexia, will drop out before their junior year. You've heard many stories over the past year. Collectively, families have spent millions of dollars outside your system getting their children diagnosed and remediated. They are the lucky ones. Still, you have thousands of students in BVSD who you are failing. Like Molly, they may be raised by single mothers working minimum wage jobs. They may speak another language and don't have knowledge about dyslexia. They may simply be from families who put their trust in you, their school board, and us, their teachers, to fulfill our obligation to find and evaluate students with disabilities. Again, we are failing these students. Senator Cassidy, a fierce advocate for dyslexia legislation at the federal level, spoke to Congress and said, "It's not about passion, it's about facts and scientific evidence and the curriculum that supports that evidence. The evidence is clear and has been for decades." So I ask you, do you have the courage to follow through on your duties to this community and follow the scientific evidence and guarantee that every child who walks through a door of a BVS school will have an opportunity to learn to read? Thank you.
Thank you. McDavid Henderson is next, and after Mr. Henderson will be Stephen Solis. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. My daughter, Evan, attends a third grade at Whittier. She was diagnosed with dyslexia in March of 2016. Upon learning that the school could only provide the minimum intervention, we made the decision to enroll her in the Hillside School, where she would receive 3 hours of intervention a day as opposed to the 30 minutes that BVSD can offer. The cost is significant, and we are responsible for her transportation. Arriving at Whittier is affecting her ability to integrate into the school, resulting in her feeling isolated, alone, and excluded. Evan is starting out with 3 significant hurdles. She is female, a minority, and has dyslexia. Overcoming the hurdles of sexism, misogyny, and racism, I fear will prove to be Sisyphean. The hurdle of dyslexia does not have to be. Developing her literacy skills will greatly assist her in being creative, constructive, and informed. The Orrin Gilliam reading program has proved to be an effective teaching tool with dyslexic and non-dyslexic students, particularly from kindergarten through 2nd grade. It can continue to be integrated into the base BVSD curriculum when comprehension and expression are the goals. We all want an integrated and diverse environment for our children. This academic year, Evan's reading level has progressed from kindergarten to 2nd grade. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Solis is next, and after Mr. Solis will be Alyssa Sims. Stephen Solis, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, great, welcome.
Thanks for listening to all of us tonight. My name is Stephen Solis, and this is my 15th year as a special education teacher and my 4th year working in this wonderful district. In my 15 years, I've worked under 4 different superintendents, and there's only one that impressed me so much that I called my parents and told them about him, and that's Dr. Messenger. What I told them is that I'm having a once-in-a-career opportunity. Working under Bruce is a once-in-a-career opportunity for an educator. I serve on the Teacher Advisory Council, which meets with Dr. Messenger once a month. In that role, I've been able to see his mindset, his forward thinking. He sees the big picture. He's a man of vision. He's responsive and sensitive to the complaints or suggestions presented to him. A few things that I've seen Dr. Messenger bring to our district: consensus. That's an incredible thing. As an educator in North Carolina, there was nobody wanted to hear from below. And definitely nobody wanted to hear about let's all get together and take time to make decisions. Social emotional learning, his vision for the Votech Center, the culture he has helped create, leading to an even better staff than in the past. Last year, a neighbor came to me with a concern about an apparent lack of cultural sensitivity in an elementary school. I emailed Dr. Messenger, and he very quickly set up an appointment with her to meet with an assistant superintendent. That's the kind of responsiveness that I'm not used to seeing. He's obviously a likable person and easy to approach, but when judging a superintendent, you have to look at more than just how that approach is affecting you personally. Knowing that I was going to speak tonight and being relatively new to the district, I asked 15 people at my school, at Boulder High School, their feelings. Nobody had less than 10 years that I asked, so everybody had been here from 10 to 30 years in the district. The one thing that everybody said was this district has never felt better. They said, I feel respected, I feel valued, I feel heard, I love the open communication, the transparency. I'm excited about the direction we're all going in as a district. The one teacher I talked to who had less than 10 years is studying at CU to get her master's, and she said Dr. Messenger is cited often by many of her classes for not only what he's doing here, but what he's doing in our state and around the country. When I first arrived at Boulder High, the climate wasn't good. That was 4 years ago. It was great staff, but people weren't getting along. And then Terry Galatch was put in place, and by December, everything changed. My point in saying that is that leadership is important. And so I don't know what's going on with the investigation, obviously, like none of us do, but I hope that you weigh all the positive attributes that Dr. Messenger brings to us when you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Alyssa Sims, and after Ms. Sims will be Bayou Greenwald. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you all for all your help and work on these programs. My name's Alyssa Sims. I have 4 sons in BVSD, 2 4th graders, a 6th grader, and a 7th grader. 2 of my children have been through reading support, extra reading support for deficiencies in their reading at Creekside Elementary, and I want to support to continue putting money into literacy because it is so critical. I'll talk about my younger child. He is now in 4th grade. He started 3rd grade at a very high 1st grade level. Within 1 year of 3rd grade reading support, he was at a low 4th grade level, so he had jumped 2 years in 1 year. And I cannot tell you what that does to a child who has low self-esteem, and how turning around their ability to feel good about themselves, what that does to a child. Your support of 3 by 3rd is critical. Getting these children to be able to read at that time is so important. The programs, it was not just reading, it was reading and writing together. His interest in learning to write blossomed. The teacher was so amazing in tapping into what was interesting to him. They were putting fiction and nonfiction together, so he was reading facts from a book and then reading a story about it and feeling so knowledgeable about it and how critical that was for him to turn him around. He was also bringing books home to us. And my background's in early childhood development, but I don't know how to teach reading. And he would say to me, in 3rd grade, this is how I do fluency, Mom. This is what we're working on. He was able and so proud of himself for teaching me what he was learning. And he wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't scared anymore. He was feeling empowered by what this program was doing for him. And it was so amazing. It turned him around. It brought his love for learning so strong. Also, I know I have 4 sons. There is no one-size-fits-all in these reading programs. I just want to support very much the integration that we're doing at Creekside with LLI, with our reading recovery, with Barton, all of these different things to try and broaden what's available to these children and tap into what each one of these child need. And then lastly, early screening. I think it would have helped district-wide in all of these stories I hear about children if you can tap in earlier. Lastly, I want to support Bruce Messenger. He has been since the moment he got here. When I heard him say the words whole child and how important whole child understanding was. My background, as I said, is in early childhood development, and I cannot tell you understanding not just the academic support of children, but everything, emotional, social, emotional, everything about a child, and I felt that he has always supported us, particularly a school like Creekside that has had some challenges. So really much appreciate Bruce, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Bayou Greenwald, who will be followed by Terry Mulford. Good evening, welcome. Is Ms. Greenwald here? Or Mr. Greenwald, I'm sorry, I forgot that. If not, Terry Mulford will be next, followed by Eliza Mackenzie. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, President Fuqua, members of the Board of Education, and Interim Superintendent Sleeper. My name is Terry Mulford, and I am a 3rd grade educator at Lafayette Elementary, as well as the Vice President of the Boulder Valley Education Association. I come to you tonight to speak on behalf of our Superintendent, Bruce Messenger, because I feel that his impact on the district has been immeasurably positive, and we need to see him return to his leadership position as soon as possible. I've worked in BVSD since 1991, both as a speech-language specialist and a classroom teacher, so I've worked under the leadership of several superintendents. Before Dr. Messenger was hired, the relationship between the district and BVEA was fractured, and there was a distinct disconnect between BVSD and its educators, which affected our relationship with the community. The fact that polling data shows an 80% approval rating in our community for the job we're doing, educating BVSD students, is due in no small part to the leadership of Bruce Messenger. It is no coincidence that community satisfaction is at an all-time high under this superintendent. Teachers, community members, parents, administrators, and students have all begun the work of our Success Effect under the leadership of Dr. Messenger. It's critical as we move forward with this work that we have consistent leadership at the head of BVSD. This consistency will ensure the successful achievement of BVSD and the board's vision, mission, and goals. Bruce Messenger is a talented and compassionate leader. Under his leadership, he has changed how we operate in BVSD and how people think about public education, as well as their roles in the system. We are so fortunate to have a superintendent of his caliber. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eliza Mackenzie, who will be followed by Sean Buckman. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My daughter Kate began school with an IEP for speech and ADHD in 2013. In kindergarten, it became clear that she was struggling with reading and writing. At parent conferences, we were shown her classwork, mostly blank worksheets. In first and second grade, Kate became more and more withdrawn. She spent hours a week sitting in her cubby and refusing to do her work. At conferences and IEP meetings, and often in front of Kate, her teachers and the special ed staff speculated that she was a bright little girl and perhaps just very stubborn. Looking back on her IEP documents, there are several references to how her attitude and lack of motivation impacted her ability to make sufficient progress in reading. While her iReady scores were clearly very low, they did nothing to convince the teacher or special ed staff that Kate was dyslexic. In fact, I had asked several times if she could be dyslexic and was only given vague responses. Things came to a head at school when Kate left the classroom one day and locked herself in the bathroom. I got a call to come to the school and found her in the principal's office. Our principal suggested I read 1, 2, 3 Magic, a parenting book, as if that might be the solution to the problem. At the next IEP meeting, I shared my fears about bipolar and other mood disorders. I cried while telling the IEP team how she had said to me, "I'm so glad you're alive, Mommy, but I'm not glad I'm alive." She was 7. In June of 2016, Kate had a full evaluation by Dr. John Kirk, and in July, we received the results. In addition to her ADHD, Kate was dyslexic. But what about the mood disorders, I asked, and the depression and the behavior? Common symptoms of undiagnosed learning disorders. It was only after we gave the results of the private eval to our school that we were told the special ed teacher, who had already been monitoring Kate and working with her on a daily basis, was trained in Orton-Gillingham. Kate was thrilled to learn she was dyslexic. She could not wait to start with her tutor. She was thrilled to learn that her brain just needed to learn to read a little differently, and it wasn't that she was stupid. So what exactly is the truth? Schools screen for vision and hearing. Why not dyslexia? How much longer will families like mine suffer the depression, self-doubt, and financial strain of identifying and addressing the needs of our dyslexic children, while our public educators ignore, either by choice or lack of awareness, a learning disorder that affects 20% of our children? Please support structured literacy intervention for every child in BVSD.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sean Buckman, who will be followed by Liz Ann Nelson. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. My name is Sean Buckman, and I'm a parent of a dyslexic child. Our daughter was struggling with reading all through the 3rd grade, reading at a grade level much lower than the 3rd grade. Her mother was also a Montessori teacher. Through some research, had decided to get her tested, and we had her professionally tested at the cost of several $1,000s. She was diagnosed with dyslexia professionally, amongst a number of other learning disabilities. So at that time, we had to decide what to do with her education going forward. Clearly, the public school system wasn't going to be able to support her. The special education just doesn't have is not equipped for children with the learning differences like dyslexia. So she is now attending 2 private schools, Hillside being one of them, and they are clearly equipped to help her with her dyslexia, as she has improved her reading skills almost up to her grade level in 1 year. We are lucky that we can afford to do this. It's not our ideal situation, and in fact, we're fairly frustrated that that was the only option available. But what about the families who can't afford it? Most likely their kids are going into special education, we've heard today, and frustrated. More likely they're skating by, they're managing to get by with poor grades or whatever, and they're going to struggle throughout their scholastic career being dyslexic because they don't have the support system in the public schools. So I think teachers need to be trained. They need to be equipped to identify the children that may be unique in this case. The school should provide the support then for those kids who are identified, and so that they can move forward and overcome their dyslexia. And if anyone doubts the reality of dyslexia or the positive impact of proper tutoring, I'd like to have them review the data that we collected on our child that costs probably a couple $1,000s, and compare to where she is now, and show that Orton Gillingham is truly beneficial for dyslexic children. So I strongly urge BVSD to implement teacher training, install a support program for dyslexia, and provide these unique children a chance to overcome their learning differences. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Liz Ann Nelson, who will be followed by Ruby Ochoa. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. I'm Liz Ann, and I'm a parent of a dyslexic child in Boulder Valley School District. I was having some struggles getting him covered, so I went and got my master's in literacy, and I'm a private tutor now for dyslexia so that he can have that opportunity. I think that dyslexia has been a bad word in the school district for far too long. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to diagnose it. They just kind of dance around it, and it's so hard to diagnose if you're not going forth and just making it happen. It's so expensive, as the last gentleman mentioned. I agree with everything that everyone said here tonight. But what I really wanted to say was who these kids are. They're creative, and they're spunky, and they're super sensitive, and they're struggling with their identity because they know they're smart, but they can't read. And they're the visionaries. They're brilliant in so many ways. And they're the Bransons and the Picassos and Einstein. Even Michael Bennett, our own senator, has dyslexia. But not everybody has a dad who's a high government official and can afford that kind of intervention. So we need to get these kids diagnosed as early as possible, and we need to decide whether we're going to be a district that ignores them or we're going to be a district that supports them in every way possible. Are we going to rein these kids in, or are we going to give them wings with these tools that we know work? Orton Gillingham, Barton, it's a multisensory approach, structured, sequential, cumulative. It works. It works. It works. Everything that you can look up, just Google it, guys. You'll know if you don't believe all these people. And thank you very much. Let's make it happen this year with the money we just got. Okay?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruby Ochoa, who will be followed by Brook Lewis. Good evening. Welcome.
My name is Ruby. I'm here in support of my son, Isaiah. Isaiah is 10 now, but since he was very young, has participated in occupational therapies, speech therapies, has been given an IEP, and soon thereafter lost his IEP due to sufficient growth. We struggled through kindergarten and first grade before we all realized Isaiah needed help still. He was put into small groups and given an IEP again. Still, it was hard for him to catch up with everyone in his class. Coming into third grade was the worst. I requested a meeting with his teacher because Isaiah was taking 4 hours a night to finish homework. I asked to modify his work and was told that I was only crippling him and that we would soon learn of how this age will take advantage of help. I was even more determined at this point to get an evaluation done. I was tired of small groups, the OTs, and the masking, and some denial I was dealing with. After receiving the diagnosis of dyslexia, I was relieved. Finally, we know what's going on. But to my disappointment, even with a diagnosis, my son is still taught the same way. That hasn't been working. There's no training for teachers, and the kids with these struggles still go unnoticed. When a teacher thinks you're lazy, what do you think the kids think of themselves? My son has suffered with self-esteem, confidence, and social issues because of what's happened academically. It is my hope that BVSD sees the value in spending the money necessary to train teachers and support the 1 in 5 who struggle with this very common disorder, me being one of them in the Boulder Valley School District. I am a teen parent. I was a teen parent with Isaiah and was put in ESL class because I wasn't reading right. And they thought because of the color of my skin that it must be because I'm Hispanic. Well, that wasn't it, but I would take it because I wanted to be anything else but stupid. And I don't want that for my son. I don't want that for any of these kids. I now am teaching early childhood education, and I see it so much, and I have to refer these kids knowing that they're going to jump through the same hoops I've gone through, and many of these parents have. And I beg you guys to just help, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brook Lewis, who will be followed by Jennifer Schwartz. Ms. Lewis, are you with us? Brook Lewis. Right here. Okay, come on up. And welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for being here and for listening to all of us. I'm another parent of dyslexic children. Good evening. My name is Brook Lewis. I'm the mother of 3 boys, ages 7, 9, and 11, all of whom have been in the Boulder Valley schools since kindergarten. My 9-year-old son was identified with dyslexia in the spring of 2016 at the end of 2nd grade and underwent extensive testing at the University of Colorado Psychology and Neuroscience Department in the fall of 2016 at the start of his 3rd grade year. We paid for the testing at CU ourselves, $1,700. iReady did not identify or diagnose my son. 3 years of LLI, kindergarten through 2nd grade, did not help him either. It was his failing to show improvement in his reading after 3 years of LLI intervention that hinted to his 2nd grade teacher that something was wrong. My 9-year-old son's 3rd grade teacher, while a dedicated and talented teacher, does not understand dyslexia or his challenges. When I told his special ed team that I didn't think she got it, they agreed with me. My son would benefit greatly from a teacher who understood the meaning of being dyslexic, someone who could help him specifically with his challenges, with reading and writing and math. Now that so much of the math problems are word problems, and if you can't read the question, you can't work the problem. My 9-year-old woke me up at 4 a.m. this morning after not being able to fall asleep last night because he was worried about his grades. He told me that his teacher said, quote, "If I don't have good grades, I won't have a good life." My son is not one of the students of BVSD benefiting from the Barton method. We are paying for a private tutor 2 hours a week outside of school in a structured literacy program. Why isn't my child benefiting from the Barton method? Why isn't every child identified as dyslexic benefiting from the teachers trained in the Barton method? Is there equity in that? I told you that I have 3 sons. While my 11-year-old is being tested for dyslexia at CU next month after a year on the waiting list, he is struggling with reading and is compensating by listening to audiobooks without his teachers knowing. iReady did not identify him. He was in LLI for 3 years. My 7-year-old is being watched and will be tested in the fall, not because of iReady or because of the help he's received from his 2 years of LLI. We started him working with a tutor in a structured literacy program in the summer of 2016. After kindergarten and a year of LLI, he couldn't read a word. Please allocate funding to train our administrators, teachers, and special education teams with experts in dyslexia. We need our dedicated teams of teachers and educators to be able to support their dyslexic students so that they too may flourish in the classroom and so that they too may love learning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Schwartz, who will be followed by Celeste Landry. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My son, a 7th grade student attending Choice Middle School, is dyslexic, has ADHD of the combined type, and general anxiety, both commonly associated with dyslexia. The dyslexia and ADHD were privately diagnosed, but unfortunately not until the beginning of 5th grade. Based on my family's experience, I believe the support for BVSD dyslexic students is woefully inadequate and almost non-existent in most schools. Although probably too late for my son, I am here tonight to support the major policy changes proposed by BV Kid. My son is an only child. He's smart, funny, has a large vocabulary, can be articulate, but hates to read and write. After second grade, we suspected something was wrong because even after several months of LLI reading group, our son continued to hate reading. We met and communicated with his teachers almost daily, and all they suggested were strategies to help him with his impulsive behaviors. When we told the teachers he hated to read, they told us to just keep reading to him. When we asked if he could have a dyslexia, we were told that his vocabulary was too big, and then the school tested him for TAG. We were never offered screening for dyslexia, and none of the professional educators identified that a potential learning disability could be connected to his behavior issues. Finally, at the end of fourth grade, a private reading tutor trained in Orton-Gillingham told us that she thought our son was dyslexic. This suspicion was verified by private neuropsych testing. What could have been identified by early screening for dyslexia took thousands of dollars and more than 4 years to diagnose. And I don't have time to go into the emotional impact all of this has had on my son. My family fortunately has the resources to continue to remediate our child's learning disability. But what about the 2 other kids that were in our son's LLI reading group? The boy in foster care who spent many of his formative years in an abusive situation, or the sweet girl who's being raised by a single mom on disability and lives in affordable housing. I know that young girl is still in the affordable housing and continues to feel the shame of not knowing how to read. BVSD is failing to serve our children with dyslexia by not providing appropriate and proven screening and interventions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Celeste Landry, who will be followed by Stephen Shaw. Ms. Landry, hi, good evening.
Good evening. Superintendent Messenger has been at BVSD since 2011. He has been quite a force in our district. When I read in the newspaper today that the head of the teachers union is unhappy with the lack of transparency around the administrative leave of Superintendent Messenger, I felt like saying, join the club. But maybe I should have said, turnabout is fair play. My experience has been that the superintendent has not been transparent with the school board. I don't think that the school board should get routine BVSD news from the newspaper, but that is what has happened under this superintendent. He has withheld information time and time again from the school communities, from the public, and from the school board. In my experience, he has not held meetings, meaningful meetings, to get public input, despite requests to do so. I don't know what personnel issue prompted Messenger's administrative leave, but I do believe that personnel issues involving the superintendent are not issues where it makes sense for the superintendent to know the exact vote of the school board. There do need to be witnesses at the closed meeting, such as legal counsel, who will observe confidentiality and ensure trust in the process. I want to share with you comments that I received from people who read the Daily Camera article this morning. One person's comment: how can people demand he be reinstated until we know what the problem is? Another person said, no way am I going to support the superintendent with the rumors I'm hearing about the personnel issue. A third person: trust our elected leaders who have full information on a personnel issue. So I want to thank you, school board members, for your work on this issue.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Shaw, who will be followed by Liz Dawson.
Good evening.
Mr. Shaw, hi.
Hi, how are you? Good. I'm wonderful. I've had the opportunity to speak with you guys a couple times in work sessions. I had one of you come out to my building site where we got to see learners making meaning of their lives, which is my favorite thing to do. The reason why I'm out here is to speak in support of Dr. Messenger because I've never had anything but positive interactions with him. A lot of what I've been able to do is because of his collaborative leadership. But I would also echo the sentiment that on March 29th, when I received the email, that I got scared. And what did I get scared about? I got scared about my job because I got to feeling that administrative leave is something that is very personal. And I know colleagues who have gone on administrative leave, and the only reason that I know about it is because they told me. It wasn't in the papers, it wasn't anywhere. But to read about it in the papers, I began to think, oh my gosh, I take calculated risks every day. I took a cell phone away from a kid today because he was listening to it in the hallways, and it's against school policy. And if he gets mad at me and makes up some malarkey about me, I need to go on administrative leave so that they can protect me. But then if that gets out in the community, then there's a chance that it diminishes my capacity to do my job. And that makes me nervous. Because now in the community, in order for, if Dr. Messenger comes back, there's some kind of damage control. Why was he put on administrative leave? Yeah, I heard rumors too. I don't like those rumors because I believe in the vision and mission of our district and how we created that together and how we've been working since 2011 to turn that into fruition. And I want to continue to see that happen. And I believe that Dr. Messenger's leadership is the type that he's a clock maker, not a time teller. He's put this into motion so that we can do these things together. But I'm worried because I'm worried that these things won't happen. So thank you very much for doing your incredibly difficult job. I can't imagine. I've heard so much tonight that I'm like, oh my gosh, they have such a hard job. So thank you very much for all that you do, and please keep doing the good work.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Liz Dawson, who will be followed by Heidi Casey. Ms. Dawson, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your I'm done already? Thank you for your time tonight and the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking tonight as a BVSD teacher and also a new BVSD parent of a preschooler. And I'm also terrified of public speaking, so that I can tell you I'm either here for therapy or I'm really in support of, I think it's an important message tonight, and that is why I'm here, maybe a little both. I'm coming from, I've been a teacher here for 6 years under Dr. Messenger's leadership. I've been a part of many committees, and I have been able to see something I have never seen before. I came from Denver. I taught there 8 years, and in that district, I felt like we were always fighting, the teachers and the administration, and it just it tore apart our work as a community and what we were trying to do for kids. And our mission often got lost, in my experience, because we were not trying to do things united. When I came to this district, I was amazed at our unison and our work together, and the collaborative effort that we put into our work. And I think that shows in our students and the success of our students. Dr. Messenger has always encouraged teachers to be educated, to do professional development that's helpful for kids. And I'm going to change what I was going to say a little bit tonight. Just my heart was breaking a little bit hearing the parents talking about their children. And what it made me feel is that I need to do my job better. I want more training. I want to work harder so that I can provide what these kids need. And every teacher I've met in Boulder that I have worked with also has that same feeling, and I think that is fostered by Dr. Messenger. That has always been my feeling working with him. The other part that I'm asking about tonight is just the transparency of the process of the board. Another thing about me is I'm our association rep, but I'm also and I also have an administrative license. So I like to see things from all sides before making decisions. I don't believe in good guys and bad guys because I think life is too complicated, but we are asking for some transparency in the process. We want to hear your side about what's going on, but we don't know what it is because the decisions have been made in private. So we want to be part of this as we have been part of our teaching experience under Dr. Messenger. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Casey is next, who will be followed by Martin Boileau. Ms. Casey, good evening. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. My name is Heidi Casey. I am a BVSD teacher as well as a BVSD parent. I've been a teacher for 20 years, 12 years here at BVSD, as well as I grew up in the BVSD district as a child. And I have a kindergartner and a preschooler. As a teacher, obviously, I was big on literacy, from even to the extent that I brought books into the hospital when I gave birth. My son was read a minimum of 10 to 15 books a day, every day of his life. He went to a wonderful preschool at the age of 4 months, because I am a full-time working mother. I did notice that he wasn't interested in things like drawing or when they were learning their letters, but he excelled he was above his peers in sports. He learned how to swim and bike and all these things and had endless amounts of energy. He had the choice in preschool, and I kept on telling myself, well, once he's in kindergarten, he won't have the choice. And so he will rise to the occasion. He entered kindergarten at the school that I work at, which is an amazing school with an amazing staff and with an amazing kindergarten teacher. They immediately gave him the intervention of LLI, which is the only thing we have is a part-time LLI teacher who's amazing, but after 2 months of working on the same 8 letters, he didn't know a single letter. And it was around that same time, even though I've been a teacher for 20 years, I didn't know a thing about dyslexia. I'd heard of it, I didn't really know what it meant, but around that same time, Karen Leopold, who's the president of the Rocky Mountain Dyslexia Association, gave a speech at our school in August, and around that time I also learned that it was highly hereditary, and around that time my nephew was diagnosed, and around that time I finally talked to Karen and kind of picked her brain and how many parents actually know the president. And the only reason why I did because she was the grandmother of a student that I had the year prior. She urged me to get tested, told me who to get tested by. I brought him in December and drove there all the way to Loveland, hoping that maybe he wasn't. And she came out and said, your little boy needs a lot of help. And after 2 days of testing, I cried my eyes out, and then I was ready to give him the help that I needed. And I realized how hard it is, not only financially, but logistically. How am I going to get my son to Hillside when I work full-time and I don't have a grandma or grandpa to drive him? How am I going to pay for it when I am a school teacher? And then you look at it, and how many tutors out there actually work with a kindergartner, and there are very few. And how do I tell my kindergartner, after you've been at school all day, you're going to go to a tutor from 4 to 5, and how do I do that and also pick up my 3-year-old? I found an amazing tutor that was willing to come in and pick him up during enrichment. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We know that Orton Gillingham works. I found out that he was not only dyslexic, but on the severe side, he is learning to read. He's had 30 hours with her. He's going to get it 3 hours a week this summer. What happens next year? How much can you expect of a 6-year-old to do tutoring after a full day of school? And I guess why is it that we are only helping kids that benefit from LLI when we know what works and we know that 1 in 5 kids have it? And literally, my child is at the most amazing school in BVSD, but he would not learn to read without the intervention. And I'm a teacher, and I'm telling you, I don't have the experience, I don't have the training. I need the training, we all need the training, and at the bare minimum, we have to have a screener in kindergarten. They exist, they're in districts all over the country.
I don't mean to cut you off, ma'am,
And
but
not very many people are in my position that get to catch it at the age of 5. Because you've heard from so many, a lot of them didn't catch it till 10 or 11, and unfortunately, it's a little too late. Thank you.
thank you. And I understand these are emotional issues. I would ask folks to keep to the time because some people are going to have to stay to the end of the meeting if we don't get through this list pretty soon. Martin Boileau, welcome. I just let Todd Nelson know that he'll be next.
I will keep my remarks short to help out. I'm a parent of 2 beautiful kids. The irony. My son went to Bear Creek. My son has dyslexia. The best school in Colorado, and there was no help for him. Do you know who taught in third grade when we figured out? The previous speaker. We need, I will keep it there. These kids, these teachers, these super talented teachers, even at the best school in Colorado, they need help. They need your help. They need the resources, they need screening, they need training, they need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Nelson is next, and after Mr. Nelson will be Jack Green. Good evening, welcome.
My name is Todd Nelson. Thank you, School Board, for letting me speak. My two boys attend BVSD Elementary. One of them has profound dyslexia, and I can comment on his experience with reading instruction in BVSD. From preschool through second grade, he struggled to learn to read. Even though he had supportive teachers and parents, he made essentially zero progress during this time. In first grade, he was placed in an LLI reading group, and we were hopeful that the small group setting would help. Partway through the year, the teacher said our son was holding back the other students in the group and asked us if we might leave the group. The school did not offer any real alternatives after ending LLI. We were stunned that you could flunk out of remedial reading. Shouldn't this be a signal to the school that the child needs more resources and a different teaching approach? He was promoted from first grade to second, even though he had little to no grasp of first grade material. Whole years were squandered waiting for him to fail the next hurdle so he could qualify for more services. Exasperation with the public school reading instruction led us to look at private school options. We are fortunate that Hillside is here in our district and have stretched to pay tuition there. To date, we have spent $67,000 in private school tutoring and testing. We have done so because we have seen results. After almost 4 years at Hillside, our son is now reading at a third grade level, still behind, but only 1 year and no longer falling further behind. So he could be taught. It just required more resources and a different approach. In particular, a structured, explicit, phonemic-based approach. But what of the families that can't afford private schools or private tutors? The public school must help level the playing field. They must use the best evidence-based methods available to give every student an opportunity to learn to read. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Green will be next, followed by Debbie Serke. Good evening, welcome.
How's it going? Thank you guys for having me here tonight. I'm a student at the University of Colorado in Boulder. I'd like to tell you a quick story about my struggles with dyslexia as a kid. I remember in first grade, all my peers were reading books, the Magic Treehouse book series, and I was the only one left not reading them. My teacher wanted me to come up to her desk, read her the first paragraph of it to allow me to read those books like the rest of my peers in silent reading time. I stumbled upon the word laugh. It doesn't seem like that hard of a word, but for a first grader with dyslexia, it was impossible to sound out and say to her to continue the paragraph. After that, I broke down crying at her desk. I wasn't able to finish the paragraph, and then as a result, I wasn't able to read the same books the rest of my peers did. Now, I'm a graduate student at the University of Colorado studying civil engineering, about to finish up my Master's of Science in May. And as a result, I would just like to advocate for dyslexia screenings. I was very fortunate to grow up in a household that would allow me to know my specific challenges, and I really feel for the kids that still struggle with it today and haven't been able to know a basic thing about the way that their brain works. So we appreciate all that you guys do, and we would really like to see some more funding for dyslexia screenings, because I would hate for the cure to cancer to be stuck in a child's brain who has dyslexia and isn't able to learn about it and be able to solve the world's problems like that. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you. Debbie Serke is next, who will be followed by Libby Black. Good evening, welcome.
Hi.
My name is Debbie Serkey. I am a BVSD parent of 2 boys at Angevine Middle School. I am also one of the co-chairs of the District Parent Council. I've been involved with the District Parent Council since 2008, and I've been one of the tri-chairs since 2011. I've seen such an amazing change in how the District Parent Council has run since Dr. Messenger has come on board. It used to be a very contentious and just a bunch of complaining done in those meetings. And now we look forward to very productive meetings. To the person who said that Dr. Messenger is not transparent, I would invite you to the District Parent Council meetings, because Dr. Messenger answers every single question, no matter how difficult the situation is. He is there for the students, he is there for the parents, and it's very clear that he always has our students' interests at his heart. His approach to addressing parents and working issues is amazing and like nothing I have seen in my experience being in a school district and as a parent. Also, his involvement in the state level shows us that he is not only interested in the students at BVSD, he is interested in the best care of all students in the entire state. And so his involvement in the state level and the national level shows us how much he cares about our students and how he advocates for them. As an example, his experience and leadership in the parent and family engagement has come to the fore as a priority for the district. And we really appreciate how the involvement of parents is so important to him. And it's also become part of the strategic plan. From my own view as a parent, and also one of my co-chair here, Stacy Ziss, we are very concerned with the lack of transparency surrounding Dr. Messenger's situation and his paid administrative leave. And as parent leaders, we feel especially helpless in this process. We urge you to be transparent about what's going on and reinstate Dr. Messenger, because his impact is far-reaching and powerful, and we would like him to be back in power. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amanda Dean, or excuse me, Libby Black, and then Amanda Dean. Hi, good evening, welcome.
Hi, my name's Libby Black. I don't know how it is that you can stand in front of 150 14-year-olds every day and not be nervous, and stand in front of 7 adults and be nervous, but I think it has something to do with power. Anyway, I have a master's degree in secondary mathematics, curriculum, and instruction from Harvard University. I taught in an elite New England high school, and I've taught at post-secondary level. I've worked for BVSD for 25 years, 11 of those years here at the Ed Center, where I was responsible for over $2 million in grants to BVSD. I've been in the middle school math classroom for the past 13 years. We tell our students, when you see something, say something. I see something. I want to say something. Dr. Bruce Messenger is one of the best educators with whom I've ever worked, and without a doubt the best superintendent. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I do know that when you have 3 of 7 board members who vote to not renew a contract of the Colorado Superintendent of the Year, there's something going on. When you have a school board that makes decisions in closed session that are by law supposed to be an open session, there's something untoward going on. And when you have a school board who weighs in on hiring decisions of anyone other than the superintendent, there's something bad going on. Dr. Messenger cares deeply about the education received by every student. He cares about parents' opinions, and he listens to their input. He has the most collegial relationship with the teachers of any remotely recent superintendent. Because of this, not only do we attract excellent teachers, but we also have a, sorry, I lost my place, evaluation system with integrity, designed for the first time to mentor struggling teachers, give them a chance to improve, and take appropriate steps if they don't improve. Not very many places have that. Dr. Messenger does not shy away from some of the toughest problems in education. This is what makes him a remarkable educator and a remarkable superintendent. I want not to believe that there's some outside influence on our local education autonomy. But we saw it in Jefferson County, and we saw it in Douglas County, out-of-state money coming in to support certain ideologies. Will politics jeopardize our children's education in Boulder Valley? I implore the school board to act with integrity. Absent any evidence of wrongdoing that certainly could be determined by now, Dr. Messenger should be reinstated immediately, enabling the work of educating kids to continue unfettered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amanda Dean, who will be followed by Barbara Watson. Good evening, Ms. Dean. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Amanda Dean. I'm a parent at Pioneer Elementary, and I've been at the school 12 years uninterrupted with 3 more to go. I'm here tonight to share with you some of my observations of the last decade. Number 1, class sizes combined with the loss of paraeducators and the large increase in students with social, emotional issues is creating a chaotic and unproductive learning environment for even the best students. 2, classroom and campus safety are recently things I no longer take for granted, which is very unfortunate. 3, communication from the school, while voluminous, is severely lacking in the real information about what is happening at the school. 4, finally, the district is not listening to parents and their feedback. 1 year ago, 2 experienced Pioneer teachers with the support of large numbers of parents were not renewed. One of the replacements has been a significant downgrade in capability. This situation has been communicated loudly, clearly, and repeatedly this school year by parents to school leadership to no avail. Combine this situation with the seeming lack of support for the struggling teacher and an inability by leadership to acknowledge problems and seek solutions, and we are now in a situation where that teacher has been removed from the classroom and is being investigated. Parent concerns were brushed off last year, communication has continued to be one way only, and now the problems have multiplied due to not acting on feedback. I put together a list of questions and action items I personally would like to see from the district. As a first step, I would encourage the district to send someone out to my school to get this information from all concerned and involved parents. We have requested this last year in regards to the 2 departed teachers and continue to be ignored. On another but related topic, the BVSD culture that has led to this situation starts with the top leadership. I find it heartbreaking that teachers are here tonight to protect the status quo that has led to a teacher in my school being accused of inappropriate action. More concerning than that, though, is the willingness to defend someone when you have no idea what accusation he or she may be facing, yet BVEA has chosen to support this leader fully. I don't even know what to say to end this, except that the parent community at Pioneer would embrace any resources and support the district would choose to send our way to heal our school. The parents have a lot of feedback to give if there's anyone willing to listen and include parental viewpoints in the decision-making for the school. I'm sorry, my 4th grader's in the class that has this problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Barbara Watson, who will be followed by Joyce Pierpont, and that will conclude the speakers. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for being here and taking our feedback. I've been a teacher in the Boulder Valley School District since 1999. I started my career in England, and I'm a 30-year veteran of teaching. When I first arrived in the district, I wasn't too sure about the efficacy and the value judgments that were made by the superintendents that we worked under. I was a union member from the get-go, and I believe in the work of Boulder Valley's union because it gives us a voice and it gives us an opportunity to interface with people that make decisions for us. Dr. Garcia came in, Dr. King came in, and I saw a situation where people were very much at odds with leadership, where people didn't trust what was happening, where people were feathering their nests at the district level. It seemed that carpets and pictures were more important than what was going on in the schools. But when Dr. Messenger joined us, it felt as though our voices were heard and that we had the opportunity to work in a collaborative environment. And that was a very refreshing situation for all of us to be in. I don't know what he's accused of. Quite frankly, I'm not interested in rumours. I'm not interested in the rumour mill. I do want this poor gentleman to have his future put at ease, and for the people that work under him in close collaboration with him to not feel that their work that they've done with him over the last 5 years is a waste, and that he isn't the person that they think he is. I have to believe he is a man of great stature, of great integrity, and that if he has done something, that it is something that he might regret and turn around given the opportunity. I don't know what it is, but I please urge you to support transparency in the process and to give everybody the opportunity to move forward in a collaborative and supportive manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Joyce Pierpont. Ms. Pierpont, welcome. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been an evening of high emotions, and I'm bringing a totally different topic to you tonight, but it's one that we feel at Casey Middle School pretty strongly about. My name is Joyce Pierpont, and I'm the teacher librarian at Casey Middle School. And some of you know this, but it may be news to others. Casey has piloted a highly successful one-to-web program with our 220 eighth graders this year. Teachers are able to use Chromebooks instructionally every day in every class without having to compete with one another for devices and carts. Even those who were skeptical at first are now supporters of the program. We would like to continue and expand next year so our 6th and 7th grade students who've requested to take part in the program can be a part of this as well. We will be next year in September, the first middle school in the Boulder Valley School District to be completely one-to-web. But maybe not. We need your help. Several middle schools have been chosen by the district to take part in one-to-web next year, and Casey is not among them. Imagine that. The explanation given to us was that Boulder High isn't ready to go to one-to-web, so because we're their feeder school, we can't take part in the program. We've used the last of our tech refresh money on March 15th to purchase enough Chromebooks so that all 650 Casey students receive one to take home and use next year. But when the device breaks or needs to be replaced, how will we be able to do that without the $45 tech fee? 3 other middle schools who haven't committed to one-to-web will have that benefit, but not us. I ask you to make an exception for Casey and allow us to continue our one-to-web for the sake of our students and teachers who are committed to using Chromebooks as an essential learning tool. And I appreciate your listening to that message tonight. We feel pretty emotional about it too, and there's obviously a lot of emotional issues here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And that will conclude public participation. We want to move to the next item on our agenda, which is board communication. I'll start. I want to thank everybody who shared their views with us tonight. We appreciate your patience. For those of you who commented on this decision to place the superintendent on paid leave while we investigate this personnel matter, I'd like to refer back to the board's original communication on this topic. We did acknowledge at the time, and we, of course, continue to acknowledge that this news can be unsettling. We also expressed our confidence that all district staff will continue to make the well-being and learning of all students the first priority. Our confidence in that is as strong as it's ever been. And we thank the district leadership team, we thank the teachers, we thank all BVSD staff for your continued dedication and professionalism. The board has proceeded and continues to proceed in a deliberate and cautious manner, following our policies and procedures with advice of counsel. The board's role here requires us to balance many different interests. We are moving forwards towards closure on this matter, and we very much appreciate your concern and your patience. With that, I'll invite my other board members to comment on anything they've heard during public participation. Anybody? All right. Hearing no... Oh, okay, Shelley, go ahead.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Listening to everyone tonight, I realize that there's so many problems that this board can't fix. We can't fix poverty, we can't fix racism, we can't fix the fact that some of you don't trust us to do our job. But one thing we can fix is dyslexia. And we've talked about this many times on this board. We know how many kids out there have dyslexia. We know what the solutions are to fixing dyslexia. We know how much money parents are spending to try and help their children. We've heard all the stories about their suffering. And I think that it's time for us to fix the one thing that we can fix here. And, you know, I asked this board when we sit down to allocate funding in the next couple weeks to think seriously about fully allocating enough money to start solving this problem.
Thanks, Shelley. Anybody else? Jenny?
So I came up with a couple of questions as I listened for staff, as I listened to some of the comments tonight. And again, I'd like to thank people for turning out tonight and expressing their concerns and letting us know how things are going out there. One of the things that I have a question about, and it actually comes from one of the RFI responses about dyslexia that you gave to it, that you were kind enough to provide to us, Joe, which I believe there was a comment somewhere that state regulations prevent us from identifying dyslexia. And I'd like a little more information about that because that puzzled me. I actually kind of thought this dyslexia was specifically called out in the IDEA Act. So that just puzzled me. And so if I could get a little more information about that, I'd appreciate it. And then I'd like some more information about the one-to-web program at the middle level. Not that I'm opposed or not, but I just didn't know we were extending that program to the middle level, especially since we haven't extended it to all the high schools yet. I was just surprised. And then, so I'd just like more information about that. And then I forgot to mention last time in response to some of the comments that I've heard about dyslexia, but some of the things that I've heard that have disturbed me a little bit, many of the things have disturbed me, but one of the things seems to be this ongoing impression among some teachers in our district that somehow dyslexia children are not, you cannot be bright and dyslexic at the same time. And I do remember that at the last meeting we had a parent saying that their child was having difficulty accessing AP classes because they had dyslexia. And I would think that that we've done a lot of hard work in this district to try to educate educators that you can have multi-exceptionalities and that you can be twice exceptional and you can have learning disabilities and be gifted even, not just bright, but gifted even. And so I don't know where we go with this, but I'd just like to say for the record that, that I've heard some indications from some of the speakers that there's a misconception out there that tag and learning disabilities can't exist in the same child, and that I find that painful, actually. And I find it painful that you can't have not just talented and gifted, but all levels of intelligence can coexist with learning differences. And so I especially find painful the implication that students might not be learning because they're lazy. I used to work really hard to get my parents not to call their children lazy. I don't think any of us ever ought to call our students lazy. That's just hardly ever what's going on. I'd like to quote Susan Weinbrenner, who is a great educator that works with both talented and gifted and students with disabilities, who said that she never met a child who wouldn't do their work. It's our work they won't do. And I think we could all stand to take that to heart. So anyway, that's what I have to say tonight.
Thanks, Jenny. Tina?
Yeah, I just want to extend my thanks for expressing your concerns and coming out and sharing what you're thinking about with the board. I also just wanted to recognize district staff and Mark Schaefer, who put together the Middle School Advisory Committee, invited the board to meet with students from a big cross-section of both of our district-run and our charter-run schools, and with the principals. And it was one of the first times we've done this in conjunction with the principals. And it was really a terrific morning and a great way to spend the morning listening to concerns from students directly, which is a nice addition to hearing from our parents and our teachers and other community members. So just a big shout out and big thank you for that.
Thanks, Tina. Other comments, board members? Kathy?
I want to thank everyone for coming as well, and I just want to assure everybody here who's speaking on behalf of students who have dyslexia that we as a board take it very seriously, and we as a district take it very seriously. And just this morning, Richard and I visited Whittier and Columbine with Angel and with Sandy, and met the principals and the teachers, and what we saw going on there was truly heartwarming, and we will continue to investigate how we make sure we serve all students' needs. We didn't necessarily see students just with dyslexia. We saw students who were struggling to learn. We saw the newcomer program, and the excitement and the thrill of these students learning how to speak English was really, really, really heartwarming. And so I just want to say, I know we saw a select few staff, but the staff that we saw and the principals that we talked with were clearly devoted to every child in that school. And I know everybody up here is devoted to every child in the district, and we will try to do our best, given limited resources, to try and meet every child's needs. So thank you for setting those interviews up, and I just want everyone to know that we really are working as hard as we can on this.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other comments, board members? All right, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, information items. We have two. The first is an update from the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Joe?
Yes, I'd like to introduce our Chief Facilities Officer, Don Orr, who will introduce tonight's agenda item.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted first, I'm going to give just a couple comments. I'm going to introduce Jeff Clay, Chair of CBOC, and then Rob Price will provide the board with a quick PowerPoint presentation highlighting some of the accomplishments of the bond program. But I wanted first to express our appreciation for the service of the committee members who have completed their terms of service. We have 5 of them. You'll notice on your agenda tonight that you'll be voting for 5 replacements of those, but I wanted to publicly acknowledge their contribution. I think the district's been well served by these volunteers. They brought a wealth of expertise. I think they've served BVSD and the students of BVSD well. Of those 5, we actually had 12 whose terms were up. Those were 2-year terms, so 7 have chosen to remain on the committee, and we're grateful for that continuation as well. And as we advertise for these openings, I wanted to mention that we had over 30 applications, so quite a different story than just a few years back where we were really struggling to fill these positions. So I think it's a testament to the work that the board's doing with the bond and the improvements made as part of that program. So I'd like to introduce Jeff Clay, Chair of CBOC.
Thanks for your time tonight. It's nice to see you again. I haven't. Last time I was up here was in October to give you a review of our work, and so this is my quarterly review for you. We met in November 16th, January 18th, and April 19th. We toured the Summit Middle School project and also toured the transportation facility that's here on this campus. I think the Summit Middle School project is indicative of all the projects that Rob and Don have under construction, in that the quality of the design really meets the educational standards that you have set forth. And I think if you haven't toured some of these projects, I really encourage you to do so, because I think what you'll find is that the money that has been raised through the bond issue has been very well stewarded and put to good use in the district. The transportation facility that we toured is amazing, the amount of work that gets done in a transportation facility that is in dire need of an overhaul. And so I know you voted some time ago to purchase land to move the transportation facility from this campus to another location. And we also voted to take some of the bond premium from the first bond letting and complete that project. So I think that will definitely have long-term positive implications for the school district and for the kids and families that you serve. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we've been doing, and then Rob and Don will give you kind of a deeper dive. At each meeting, the group reviews financial reports and staff presents a forecast of projected recommendations for bond premium funds. As of April 7th, 2017, we've expended $171 million. Contracted commitments total $252 million, and of that 252, commitments for projects in construction is $212 million. Commitments for projects in design is $177 million. As I mentioned prior, $29.3 million of the bond premium from the initial bond let have been allocated to projects. All financial reports are posted on the financial page of the bond program website. And I believe you were given a copy of the April 7th budget and expenditure financial summary. In March, BVSD sold $190 million in Series 2017 general obligation bonds, which will fund the next phase of improvements in the Building for Student Success program. Action items over the past several months. Bob Abeda, my co-chair, we had a co-chair that unfortunately had to leave the committee in the fall due to some family needs, but Bob was elected co-chair. He unfortunately is in Seattle. He couldn't join us this evening. The Manhattan budget augmentation, we voted in November 2016. We approved the transfer of $3.3 million in bond premium funds to the Manhattan budget for construction of a new main gym. As I mentioned previously, in April, just this past meeting, we approved the transfer of $2.5 million in bond premium funds to the transportation facility budget for infrastructure improvements in a new vehicle wash facility. Brookfield High budget augmentation, again, we approved the transfer of $990,000 for ADA improvements and parking lot paving and lighting, and premium transfer to inflation reserve. So we let another bond issue just recently, as I mentioned, in March, and we earned a premium off of that as well. There was some concern, and I think Rob will probably get into it a little bit deeper, but there was some concern about inflation for the project, and so we allocated a good portion of that bond to inflation for future projects. And that's the information I have for you so far. The committee is working very well. We get a lot of input from staff. We get a lot of data from staff. And I think they've been doing a really great job stewarding the funds.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good evening. Pull up a quick presentation here. So as we've reported before, in 2016, we completed 8 of the identified 63 projects in the master plan. Including with that was the Spangenberg field improvements and also the middle school track and field improvements. So the other 8 are listed there on your screen. In 2017, this summer, we have 15 projects that will be under construction. So as we've identified the projects on the screen, but Pioneer and Boulder High will be finishing up their second phase. Those were 2-year projects. And then Broomfield, Centaurus are multi-phase, so they'll be starting in May and they'll wrap up in August of 2018. So at the end of 2017, we'll have completed 20 of the 63 identified master plan projects. We have the exemplar schools. They're all on track to open up in August. They're beginning to take shape of what they'll look like when they're finished. Creekside Elementary School is 72% complete. As you can tell, we're making great progress on the interior of the building. Finishes are rolling through. We are going to start focusing on the exterior of the building. So one of our biggest challenges this summer is we have 11 weeks to complete all the site work. And 4 of those 11 weeks we'll be completing the abatement and demo. So that leaves us 7 weeks to complete curb and gutter, parking lots, playgrounds, irrigation, et cetera. So we don't have a lot of time, and all that work is dependent on good weather. So interior of the buildings are coming along nicely, but we have to get the rest of it done to get a TCO on the buildings. Douglas Elementary School, as you can see, great progress again on the interior of the building. Crews are wrapping up brick veneer, windows, et cetera, on the exterior. Roof is complete out there, and then again, they'll start focusing at the end of May on exterior site work. Emerald, we're in the same position, about 65% complete on Emerald. Brick veneer is complete. Roof is approximately 90% complete. Windows are about 85% complete. So furniture on all these projects has been ordered and will be installed in July. So we're looking good on those 3 projects. As you can see here, this is an aerial photo of the new Metal Art School in Erie. This is our K-8. Great progress on the 2 learning communities. Those are the 2 wings that stick out to the west, so we are doing finishes in those 2 areas. Area B, which is the admin area, preschool, et cetera, we're done with metal stud framing. We're electrical and mechanical rough end. We'll start drywall here in the next few weeks. So this project was also always a multi-phase project. Learning communities, admin suite, pre-K will all be opening up in August. The gymnasiums and the music room will not be complete until November, and that's what we've always reported. So great progress. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, that is the heart of the building. Transportation facility, R&L completed up the design in February. We bid that project out. JHL was the low bidder, and we will be recommending award to you at the May 9th meeting. Construction is scheduled to start on the 42,000 square foot facility in June. We hope to have site acquisition completed in May. So that's what's happening. That is at the new site on 63rd. Upcoming 2018 projects. Projects currently in design. So right now we have these 7 projects in design. We also have another 7 projects that will be starting design in September. Those projects are Columbine Elementary, Cole Elementary in Broomfield, Fireside, Uni Hill, and then the 3 Netherland projects, Netherland Elementary, Netherland Middle Senior High, and Netherland Transportation. So a total of 17 projects are to be under construction in 2018. So where were we and where are we going? This time last year, we had $32 million in expenditures. We were approximately 5% complete. In the last year, so April 7th, 2017, we're right now at 171, and I'm projecting $120 million of expenditures between April 7th and September, and we'll be about $290 million complete the end of September. So we're putting a lot of work in place this summer. Great progress by the team. Bond sale, as Jeff just mentioned, on March 16th, Boulder Valley offered its Series 2017 general obligation bonds to the public in a competitive bid process. The total amount issued was $283 million, including $190 million issued as the second round of debt for the Building of Student Success Program. $93 million of the 2017 bonds were issued to refinance the district's Series 2000 general obligation bonds. The refinancing will lower the interest rate on this portion of the district's debt and will allow it to be paid off sooner, resulting in a total debt savings of more than $22 million. So great job to the team on that. And then, as you know, Boulder Valley's bonds are rated by Moody's, Standard & Poor, and Fitch. The rating from the rating from Standard & Poor represents an upgrade from the district's prior AA rating, and is the highest rating assigned by Standard & Poor for any Colorado school district. So right now we are AA plus rating. So again, excellent news. As Jeff mentioned also, in March of 2017 this year, staff started analyzing current trends of what the market's doing, projections of inflation related to construction costs in the Denver metro area. And really, given the national rebound from the Great Recession and the healthy and robust economy that we're currently in, inflation rates are exceeding our 2014 estimates. So as a result, projects are experiencing cost pressures, making it increasingly difficult to meet scope. So we're seeing this with a lot of school districts right now. So the original master plan included $37 million for inflation over the life of the program. Inflation allocations are not guaranteed, and we only award those to projects when they've shown us that they cannot meet master plan scope and they've went through the value engineering process. So to date, 11.5 has been allocated to the phase 1 and some of the phase 2 projects. So staff's analysis projects an additional $24.4 million will be needed for projects to meet scope due to inflation. And when I say inflation, I'm also talking about construction escalation, et cetera. So at our April 19th meeting, CBOC supported staff's recommendation to allocate $24.4 million to the inflation fund from the bond premium that we made from the sale of the second round of bonds. Sustainability, we continue to track sustainability metrics on a monthly basis. These include sustainable sites, which is supporting sustainable modes of transportation, water efficiency, energy efficiency, materials that we are purchasing or that we are diverting from the landfills, indoor environmental quality, and innovation. Innovation is the educational opportunities that we're affording to our students. All of our new builds are on track to be LEED Gold. For all the projects, we're including strategies that will benefit air quality in the schools, including increasing ventilation and using low-emitting materials. Most of our schools have existing gardens or solar panels, and we're working to relocate those on the sites. And then to date, we've received $131,000 to add electric vehicle charging stations to 21 of our schools. I think today we've got notice that we've got additional funding to continue to add those. To date, we have diverted 60% of our construction waste. Our goal is 75, so we're continuing to work to that. We're thrilled about this goal. It's high. It's a challenge. We've also, we have several partnerships and strategies in place for diverting furniture. Some of those are providing those furniture back into our own buildings. Others are partnering with Resource and our furniture vendors to reuse and recycle remaining furniture. We have sent more than 22,000 pounds of furniture to Resource to date. And then EcoCycle and Charm take our books, and we help distribute those back into the community and other schools. So great progress so far on the sustainability side. At Meadowlark, they are 86%. So great job to that team out there. Energy. As you can see, and as we've reported before, the six projects shown. Right now, we're showing $170,000 for those projects and energy savings from a true code-compliant building. So the reason we're not showing the other phase one schools at this time is because those schools were not modeled. These schools were, so we're tracking it on a modeling basis. So once we have a year's data, we'll be able to report back what those savings were. But I can tell you right now, the preliminary findings on Southern Hills, Sanchez, Birch, and Pioneer, we've improved by 32%. So we set a goal by 2019, we wanted to improve energy savings by 20%, and right now we're exceeding that goal. So great job there. We've also received $174,000 in Excel energy rebates for designing and constructing efficient facilities. And we anticipate another $215,000 in rebates for the exemplar schools. So in regards to energy, our average EUI, or energy usage intensity, was 80.4 before the bond on these 7 projects. We're at 37.8, 52% more efficient than compared to a traditional design. Current district average is 68 kBTUs per square foot, or 68 EUI. Again, remember, energy usage at Broomfield Heights Middle School was cut, and we even added air conditioning out there. So, and the exemplars are on track to be net zero capable. We will be looking at solar through PPAs, et cetera, to possibly get those to net zero, but that's down the road a little ways. That is the end of our report. Do we have any questions?
Okay, thanks, Rob. Questions, board members? Who would like to start? Anybody? Or perhaps, well, I have one. I know in projects of this scope, with costs going up and issues that come up in the design and construction, you've had to move money around. What schools have taken the biggest hit? Like, have we had to take away significant amounts of money from certain projects so we can do
all
others?
of the budgets remain all the way through the master plan. We have allocated additional funds from bond premium or inflation, and those are ran through, when it's a bond premium, it's ran through CBOC. Inflation, I have that discretion on when to allocate those funds. So all of the original budgets that were set originally, they're all still maintained all the way through. We haven't taken money from one of those projects to help another project.
Great, so every school is getting at least what was promised.
Definitely.
Back
Plus
when
plus we have that inflation allocation that if they can't meet master plan, and they've proven that to me, then when we'd allocate those inflation dollars at that time.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, board members? All right, well, thank you, Rob, thank you, Don, thank you, Jeff. We appreciate all your work. Board members, before we move on, I'm just going to take a short break, 5 minutes, okay? Great. All right, we're back to the meeting for the next item on our agenda. It's an information item, a legislative update. We welcome our Director of Communications, Briggs Gamlin. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Sleeper. At the request of the board, just coming to you with a quick update of where we stand 15 days prior to the legislature's required adjournment date. And to put that in perspective, actually, it's really only 11 working days because it's very rare that they will take a weekend session. So 4 of those days are the weekend. So in 11 days, they still need to pass the school, finalize the differences on the budget. And the budget just now, the House passed the budget a while ago, a few days ago. And the Senate had been waiting to take some action. And today, late this afternoon, they did formally request a conference committee. And on the budget, when it's the budget bill, it's the conference committee is always the Joint Budget Committee, which is 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, so I think we'll have a budget pretty soon. The School Finance Act has begun to move, but first I wanted to touch on Senate Bill 267, which is the hospital provider fee. It moves the hospital provider fee off the Tabor calculation, which is good news, but as it's passed the Senate, or at least in committee, but the Senate version also then lowers the Tabor. It sort of gives with one hand and takes with the other. It says, okay, we'll take the hospital provider fee out of the calculation and allow the Tabor ceiling, not to be affected by that, by the hospital fee. But then it goes and lowers the ceiling. So it might what it does is it lessens the number of years under the Senate formula that would provide some relief. It also provides a great deal. It does provide some sustainability support for Colorado's very cash-strapped rural districts, the House leadership has indicated that they will not go along with the Senate's lowering. So you remember that the Senate is Republican-controlled, the House is Democratic-controlled, and as a result, the bill appears to be stalled in Senate appropriations right now. So we may once again come up short in getting relief from this whole issue of the hospital provider fee. The School Finance Act finally dropped, and some people get confused by that. They hear dropped and they think it's been killed or something. Dropped is just legislative jargon for the bill's been introduced. And to explain, the School Finance Act often is referred to as simply as the next year's amendments because we haven't had a real structural change to the School Finance Act since 1994, which is a departure. People like Kathy would know that it used to be every 8 to 10 years the bill would get the act would be restructured, but there hasn't been a political willingness to do that. And there's been a great deal of concern about upsetting the formula. So the School Finance Act is basically the same structure we had last year, but with 17, 18 numbers plugged in. And then there was a linkage to Senate Bill 61, which passed the Senate in March, but that problem of moving forward on the School Finance Act, and basically Senator Owen Hill, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee, his willingness to move forward on it when Senate Bill 61 was stalled in the House was a problem for a while, but he has decided to go ahead and move forward. There may be some attempt to amend some language in a charter. People are not sure about that. The House Democratic majority, after sitting on Senate Bill 61 and not assigning it to committee for a number of weeks, did draft a significant rewrite of the bill, but which would not be acceptable to the Senate. And at the same time, many of the groups that testified, including BVSD, that testified against Senate Bill 61 when it was in front of Senate Education, are feeling that maybe it's just in everyone's best interest not to have 61 be fixed at all, just to have it go away. We'll see what happens on that. And then I think probably if there's a disappointing, probably one of the great disappointments of this session, other than not buying, than increasing the negative factor, is that something really foundational that needs to be done, I think, and this board has indicated that in its platform, public education visioning. This bill originally passed the House with broad bipartisan support, and it was, the desire was to create and begin a multi-year broad-based discussion and to find a statewide consensus for what public education should look like in Colorado and what the funding model of that should be, and to try and restore a consensus that used to exist in Colorado for public education until the 1980s. However, even though it had strong Republican support in the House as well, the Senate Majority Leader, Chris Holbert of Parker, dismissed the purpose of the effort because he said that he felt it was only about building a case for greater funding for K-12 education, and to him that wasn't worth it. So the bill has the bill's been assigned to Senate State Affairs, and that's usually not a good indication. So that's it. I'd urge everyone to please read the BVSD Weekly Legislative Update. We also keep we archive all the issues there, and it really it's very well written. It's with the help of our lobbyists and Todd Engdahl, former Chalk Beat, Colorado reporter. Those are excellent articles, and they give you a really clear and concise sense of what's happening to important legislation. The other one, if you are interested, is Chalk Beat, Colorado. But I would say even if you just read the BVSD Weekly Legislative Update, you'd be up to speed. And please, if you have any questions, please that I can't answer tonight, please write them down. I will get them to our lobbying team of Tanya Kelly Bowery and Ernestine Mondragon, and we will get you answers back as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Briggs. Kathy has a question.
Yes.
Just one, maybe two. But this is for the presentation we're going to have from Bill. With the assessment rate not being dropped as much as they thought it was going to be dropped, has there been any change in the negative factor calculation, or is it the same?
Bill, I'm going to defer to Bill on that,
Yeah.
because it's a question I have, and I had a call in today to try and find that out. Tanya and Ernestine were stuck in hearings, so I tried to call JBC staff and get an answer, and they took a message. So I haven't heard back from them.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd have an answer. I just thought I'd ask.
No,
And-
it's a good question, and we actually discussed this very question in the Teacher Advisory Council yesterday.
And then, have you heard anything about a special session on transportation? Are you hearing any talk about that?
I've heard a rumor about it, but I don't hear a real strong feeling about it, because if they can't, I think the feeling is if 267 can't move, if can't even get consensus on that, then a session on transportation would be of questionable value.
Other questions, board members? Jenny?
So, Kathy, you know that Great Education Colorado had its education summit on Friday, and Mark Ferrandino, who is the former Speaker of the House and currently the CFO of Denver Public Schools, was
Right.
there, and he talked about the assessment value, and he said, well, that's more money in the state legislature, and you'd never think that more money in the general fund would be bad news, but in this case, it may very well be, because it takes some of the pressure off of the state legislature to find a solution to some of the financial problems that are facing the state. And he was afraid that possibly as a result of the fact that the assessment value hadn't dropped as much as we thought it was going to, there would be seen as less need to do something about the hospital provider fee, for what that's worth.
That's possibly true.
Other questions? If not, Briggs, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it, as always. Move to the next item on our agenda, which is action items, consent grouping, including 7.1, approval of minutes, April 4th, 2017, special meeting, DLT. 7.2, approval of minutes, April 11th, 2017. 7.3, approval of minutes, April 18th, 2017, special meeting. 7.4, acceptance of donation, Broomfield High School. 7.5, amendment to the construction manager general contractor contract for bond-funded improvement work at Centaurus High School. 7.6, amendment to the construction manager general contractor contract for bond-funded improvement work at Community Montessori School. 7.7, amendment to the construction manager general contractor contract for bond-funded improvement work at Manhattan Middle School. 7.8, approval of the contract for bond-funded PK through 8 library and literature collections and services for Meadowlark Campus. 7.9, Boulder Preparatory High School, approval of addendum substituting contract exhibit waivers. 7.10, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee membership. 7.11, closeout to the construction manager general contractor contract for bond-funded improvement work at the Birch Elementary School renovation. 7.12, Justice High School, approval of addendum substituting contract exhibit waivers. 7.13, non-renewal of contracts. 7.14, Summit Charter School, approval of addendum substituting contract exhibit waivers. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve. Motion from Kathy, seconded from Tina. Is there any discussion of items on consent? Hearing none, Laura, could you please call the vote on the consent agenda?
Belval.
Yes.
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Gebhardt.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving now to a study item on our agenda, 9.1, 2017-18 General Operating Fund Preliminary Budget Update. Joe? We're bringing up Bill, I think.
Yes, we are bringing up Bill. I'd like to introduce Bill Sutter, our Chief Budget Officer, and he will present the exciting budget presentation for this evening.
Welcome, Mr. Sutter.
Thank you. I have a arguably not so brief PowerPoint that we will walk through here. Start. There we go. So this is a continuation from last week's discussion at the work session on the preliminary budget. So I have updated a few items and will certainly loop back into those legislative topics as Briggs mentioned. First off, a quick review of the milestones. We brought this forward back in December with our kickoff to the budget development process. So the red line, about 2/3 of the way through, is where we are right now. We still have some time left in the process and some data points, as we call them, the sort of tan squares and rectangles, information that's continuing to come in and inform us during the budget process. The input that we've received to date on the development of the budget. So the District Accountability Committee puts forth recommendations as provided for in statute. Those came forward on January 10th at a work session. Historically, the District Accountability Committee had provided draft recommendations, and they're usually received at the work session in April, last week's timeline. But these were received 3 months early due to the hard work of the DAC committee to pull that together and do it earlier than normal. We also had focused staff input via that School Accountability Committee and DAC process. So we really encouraged school staff to provide input through DAC. Numerous public comments at board meetings, including this evening. The Student-Based Resource Allocation Committee recommendations, there are some targeted allocations that are included within the budget, so I would suggest that those align with that recommendation, although the recommendation was not able to be fully implemented. And we certainly have had greater feedback through work sessions with the number of work sessions, 6 of them, board meetings and work sessions since December, as well as Superintendent's Cabinet and the District Parent Council just last week. Quick review of what happened at each of those meetings. So again, back in December, we had the budget development milestones information item. That January 10th work session, we did introduce the strategic financial plan draft document. that included assumptions, information on the success effect and general program areas, and which generally turned into priorities for funding in the budget, and again, those DAC preliminary budget recommendations. On February 14th, we continued talking about the assumptions, the priorities, and the next steps in the budget development process. On the 21st of February, we had a work session. It's the second quarter financials and the mid-year analysis, as well as a continuation of the budget development planning. So that mid-year analysis is really our chance to look at a thorough review of how we're spending our dollars and receiving our revenue in this current year, and informs us for where we will end up at the end of this year, which really is the start for next year. So essentially, will there be resources remaining, or do we have a budget area that needs a course correction either mid-year or in the upcoming fiscal year? More on that later. On March 14th, a continued work session on budget priorities. We began talk of one-time resources. Again, that's how we are projected to end this current fiscal year, so what those resources are. And seeking board direction on staffing, the release of staffing prior to spring break, and the operational mill levy increase. On the 21st of March, another work session with budget priorities, use of one-time resources, a discussion of high school targeted class size caps, limiting the class sizes on language, arts, and math in freshman and sophomore classes in high school, and then having a report back to the board later in the fall as that rolls out. And then also, again, seeking board direction on staffing and operational mill levy increase, and confirming the priorities with the majority of the board. For a School Finance Act update, the current School Finance Act and budget that's included in the long bill has a 2.8% increase to base funding. That is the inflation factor, that is the Denver-Boulder-Greeley Consumer Price Index. That is what inflation, as referred to in the Article 10, Section 20 of the Constitution, refers to as inflation. There is an increase in the negative factor with a net increase of 2.52% on per pupil funding, or about $185 per student. We are projecting a growth in students. It's about 212 FTE. We tend to be very precise in our student projections. This does include growth in out-of-district students for the opening of Meadowlark School out in Erie, as it is very close to the border with St. Vrain. For the funded pupil count, this just breaks down where those students are generally falling into, whether they're general FTE, non-charter schools, or within charter schools, preschool or online. Just run through these real quick. Most of the increase is coming within the general non-charter FTE, slight increase in charter schools, no projected increase in preschool funded FTE. Again, these are funded preschool positions, or FTE, not tuition students. And then online, just one student change there. And then all told, again, 212, just shy FTE increase. The priorities that have been worked on and included in the budget as we've been moving through this process: maintaining program services and support as it exists in the current budget, unless there are specific decisions to make changes. Add classroom teachers for student growth. Those classroom teachers are the sort of linear increase in resources needed for student growth in the district, as well as all the ancillary programs from maintenance to staffing in other areas across the district. But this is targeting those classroom teachers. Employee contracts, maintaining those. We are in the second or third year of some contracts. The increase in the Public Employees Retirement Association, that's statutory, and the projected planned health and dental increase. Social emotional learning, that was a DAC priority to include that. Equity and supporting targeted populations, also a DAC priority. And building maintenance and operations, which was highly supported in the polling we did last spring in advance of the mill levy override last fall. Preliminary budget, so now we will dig into the dollar amounts that are assigned to each of these areas. So the 2.52% net per pupil revenue increase, $5.3 million. So again, this is the per pupil revenue increase on the existing students within the district. The additional student FTE, that 211.9 FTE, generates about 1.6 million. On top of that, we have the 25% mill levy override that is applied to that total increase of both the PPR and the students, 1.7 million. Pardon me. And then other revenue, things like tuition, specific ownership tax, grants, we have indirect costs, sundry line items, revenues, for a net total of 9.2 projected $1 million increase. For transfers, so charter schools, they have some increase in students as well as that 2.52% increase on their existing students, so that's 600,000. The other funds are generally food services and the Colorado preschool program. Risk management, so this is workers' comp and property and liability insurance premiums that are going up. And then community schools, we do generate revenue in community schools that transfers back to the general fund, and it's looking like $200,000 is available there to bring back into the general fund. So about 800,000 transfers out of the general fund. For compensation that's currently built into the budget, we have a 2.52% cost of living adjustment for all employees. So this would include all funds. So this is so the bus drivers that are captured in the transportation fund. This is captured in this amount. It'll actually be a transfer to the transportation fund eventually, but we wanted to capture this all in one area for a compensation. 6.1 million for that 2.52% COLA. Steps, lanes, attrition, so this is movement on salary schedules as identified in contracts as they exist, 1.8 million. That PERA rate increase that I mentioned earlier, this is the last scheduled increase in the percentage that the district contributes. That's going up in mid-year on January 1 of 18, 1.1 million. And then health and dental insurance, zero on dental insurance and health insurance. We had planned a 3-year increase in health insurance. We took a pause in this current year, and this is the planned 4.8% increase that's needed to maintain that health insurance fund. So that's $10 million in compensation. Other expenditures. So we are projecting $5 million in new revenue from the increasing of the mill levy and the operational mill levy by 1 mill. That, again, generates $5 million. That and the available space due to a one-time expense currently in that fund allows us to transfer $6.2 million of operational and IT expenditures off of the general fund and into that new fund. So this frees up space in the general fund for additional expenditures. The Boulder Explore program is being closed down temporarily and put on pause as it's revisioned and looking forward. That's a program for homeschool students to come in for part-time programming. The Meadowlark School, $2.3 million. So this is the net increase as students move between Angevine Middle School, Lafayette Elementary, all the Lafayette schools into the new Meadowlark School. Some resources will transfer with them, but this is the net increase needed for utilities and custodians and special ed programming and principals and clerical staff and the whole 9 yards. So this is basically what it costs to open a new school without a significant amount of growth at this time. Elementary social emotional learning, phase 1, $1 million. So this is the initial phase of a 3-phase rollout for elementary social emotional learning. It includes 7 counselors, 2 behavioral health specialists, and a part-time coordinator for social emotional learning. Special ed staffing, speech language pathologists, 600,000. So this is really a needed area. Again, some of those targeted resources mentioned earlier for students in the higher needs areas of the district. Special education intensive program. So this is adding an intensive program for autism at Bear Creek. Student growth, classroom teachers, I mentioned that earlier as one of the funding priorities, $700,000, that's for the additional staffing for those new students. Ops and maintenance services, so adding $500,000 for, maintenance and ground support, as well as custodial services and some technology and operational expenditure upgrades. fees, contracts, and software. This is basically, a majority of it is time capture software and waste and recycling expenditures. So that's a net decrease of just under $1 million in the general fund. Next, we have the expenditures identified as one-time items to be included in the budget. So again, these are our projected resources that will be remaining at the end of this current fiscal year. We have a staffing reserve, $1.5 million. This is included for a couple of reasons. One is the unknowns around where students will actually end up within that Lafayette and Meadowlark area, as well as just how the students will need to be transported and some decisions that still need to be made around that. We also have some unknowns at the federal level with federal grants and possible impacts there, and so this really allows us to react to any negative impacts at the federal level and give us a year to make adjustments rather than having to come in after the school year has started and make impacts to staff within buildings. Learning materials, K4 English Language Arts, phonics and phonological awareness, targeted instruction, professional development for targeted intervention and dyslexia support, PD for newly adopted English language development materials, and two programs that were requested from outside organization. These are community partners that we have dealt with for a long time, both the Statewide Parent Coalition, the PASO program, and the Community Foundation with the El Paso program. So $4.8 million in one-time uses of those resources, one-time expenditures. We have a donation, a one-time donation to support the Professional Development Center. So that's a one-time revenue. We do have a transfer of capital reserve emergencies, $1 million. Although we've sort of termed this as emergencies, they're not entirely emergencies in the sense of emergencies, but more of those unplanned expenditures that can occur because we have been underfunding fairly significantly the capital needs of the district. So this is not only buildings, but also things like mowers and replacement of equipment and things like that. Cap reserve indoor air quality, so this is a portion of a multi-year contract that we're funding. The technology fund, AccuVant web filter, again, a way to fund an expense over multiple years after an upfront payment was made. So this is just expending it over multiple years and funding that expense. And then we're suggesting that putting $1 million into fund balance would be a good idea to hedge our bets against the future as we are going forward. We do have gap reserves for a prepaid software contract, separate from that one, the AccuVant web filter. And then the 3% tabor and contingency reserve, as we add expenditures in the district, we need to increase our reserves for that. So subtotal one-time uses $2.8 million, and a subtotal of total uses, one-time uses 7.6. Quick summary of the ongoing expenditures: revenue $9.2 million, transfers, compensation and other expenditures net out to a shortfall currently of about $700,000, just under $700,000. Again, we're still working our way through the end of the fiscal year as far as building the detailed line items of the budget. We are talking about $10 or $15 million worth of changes here, where the budget, the general fund budget, is close to $300 million. So there are a lot of moving parts that could help balance this out, both on the revenue side and expenditure side, through the end of the year when the budget is adopted. Quick summary of those one-time uses: $8 million projected available, with 7.6 in uses, so about $400,000 unallocated at this point in time. Totally forgot I wasn't advancing my PowerPoint slide. Sorry about that. Outstanding items, must be late. The School Finance Act, so as Briggs noted, it did drop when we were discussing this last week. It had not been introduced yet. It is what we refer to as a clean Finance Act, so it doesn't have lots of other bells and whistles added into it at this point in time, just the Finance Act as it exists right now in statute moving forward. So there are a number of days left in the legislative session that changes could be made. The additional funding for charter school operating costs, that's Senate Bill 61, and the it's not introduced, it's sort of floating around out there, competing bill that's very similar. As Briggs noted, both challenging to implement and a financial impact to us if they were. The sustainability of rural Colorado or the hospital provider fee, again, that could generate resources for the district by improving the negative factor or reducing the negative factor, but only if it's really can and move that hospital provider fee off and free up some space within the general fund. Now, we did mention the residential assessment rate being not as much of a reduction as originally thought. So originally thought it was going to drop from 7.96 down to 6.85 or 6.56%, which would reduce the money generated locally across the state from property taxes. It is coming in at 7.2%. A bill was introduced to set it at that rate. The moving part around that is really what is the local assessed value increase that comes along with that amount is applied to, or should say the actual value. So we won't know that until December when all that information comes in for the certification of mill levies. So we do have a ways to go on that. Next steps, as was mentioned, the legislative session ends in a couple of weeks on May 10th. We have a regular board meeting on May 23rd for the proposed budget as a study item. So that is the big thick book with lots of information in it. The June 13th regular board meeting is when we're targeting for budget adoption as an action item. Then in December, on December 12th at the regular board meeting, we'll have the certification of mill levies and assessed valuation, which is really in the throes of the final stages of the revised budget, which would happen at the end of January. The January 23rd meeting would be the last scheduled meeting to adopt that revised budget within the statutory deadline of January 31st.
Thanks, Bill. Any questions or comments, board members? Tina.
Yeah, just a comment that I think we added one more item on the timeline, which is on May 23rd, inviting public participation at a 5 p.m. work session, is what I understand. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we had put aside some time for the public to specifically meet with us and share their ideas about the budget. That's correct, 5 p.m. on the 23rd.
On the 23rd, yeah. And then I think I still have an RFI out on some of the budget items, so I'll resend it to you. Okay.
Kathy?
I was going to say the same thing. Thank you, Joe, for the heroic effort with you and staff to respond to a lot of the RFIs, but there's still some information that's not clear to me and contradictory information, and so I'm still uncomfortable around some of the issues that were addressed, and I'll try to follow up in another RFI.
And board members, we did discuss, those of you who are present at agenda setting, we have some flexibility in our schedule if we needed to add an additional work session on the budget that might be possible. Other questions, comments? Shelley?
Yeah, Bill, thank you again for going through this. I mean, thank you for going through this again. Some of the questions I asked in my RFIs, the answers aren't particularly clear to me, so I'll be submitting another one as well. I won't go through it tonight. It's getting so late, but I'll do that.
Tom?
Same thing for me there, Joe. So I'll send some follow-up RFI to my RFIs that I've sent, and I have some more questions. Over the last few years, we've heard a lot from our community about, I guess what I'd classify our failures to address the needs of our dyslexic students with dyslexia, and more we're hearing about that. As I understand it, we've identified about $500,000 here in the budget to put toward that, which I think is woefully inadequate. One of the RFIs I'll submit, unless you know the answer now, is it was suggested tonight we need dyslexia screening in all of our kindergartens. And I want to find out what that would cost us, what we'd have to invest to do that. Another question that's been raised over and over and over is structured literacy and training for our gen ed teachers on how to work with students with dyslexia. And you know, given the outcries that we have and all of the personal stories we've heard with our students and how they're struggling, I have to believe being more proactive in this area from a budget standpoint will actually save us money. I mean, we're having to follow up and spend resources to help bring students back up in ways that we're not very efficient, put it that way. This sounds bad because it's in terms of dollars, and what we're talking about are our families and students and their lives and their futures. But from a budget standpoint, I have to believe that if we put the right money in ahead of time, being proactive, we're going to save money overall. And I'd like to see a really comprehensive plan of how we'd work that into our budget. Shelley had put forth some plans and budget. Maybe we should revisit those, Shelley, that you put forward, and as a first step toward meeting, the needs of our community. I really believe we need to do that and figure out how we do that within our budget. I'd also like to do something different in our budget that hasn't been done since I've been on the board. We get the budget booklet, and numbers are hidden in big categories. For example, last year I was told that we were spending a fair amount of money on addressing our students with dyslexia, and we didn't spend that much. I'd like to call out separate line items in our budget book so there's accountability to the district and accountability to the board as to what we're spending to address these needs. I want to see more than, $80 million in gen ed. I want to see some of those numbers, not all the numbers. We can't show all the numbers, but for areas that we know that we're having issues in and we want to address, I think it gives us good visibility and accountability. I'd also like to see some of the other things that have been put forward by the board as priorities. Those, get into the budget book as our priorities. For example, the targeted class size reductions. And we talked about that at the work session, about how in our high schools with our freshmen and sophomores that we limit class sizes in mathematics and language arts to 30. I'd like to see that statement in our budget book, and I'd like to hold ourselves accountable to doing that. So it's uniform across the district and all our high schools, and it doesn't vary when we get there. And I've seen this happen over and over that, good intentions, but when rubber meets the road, things go awry somehow. And I'd like to have accountability to this district and this board for items like that. Anyway, I won't go on. I'll put some more of these in R5s and see where we can go. And I think another work session would be a good idea to have.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. If you specifically in the RFI describe the areas you'd like more detail on in the budget book, that would be helpful. Other questions, comments, board members? Jenny?
So I'm just a little curious. So the Meadowlark School, the ongoing, the cost of operating Meadowlark is $2.3 million, and that's ongoing. Or do we see some reduction, or as the population of Meadowlark grows and we get more students, will we get more students from the district as a result of opening that school, I guess is what I'm asking. Right now it looks like we've got 30 more, but over time will the net cost?
A couple of pieces to that. The total cost of running the school will be more than that. Mm-hmm. So again, as staff are transferred from one school to another. So,
Thank you for clarifying. You're right.
Right. So that's one piece. As far as the cost of the school will certainly grow as the middle school fills out. The middle school is going to start relatively small, just from the availability of students and them giving those choices as to whether they stay at Angevine, the sort of grandfathering for a year or two, depending on what grade they're in. So there is some space available at the moment for those out-of-district students, but it also needs to maintain the space for the houses that are being built out there. So, I don't know if that.
Well, I was just kind of curious about the marginal cost, because it seems to me, as we discussed closing schools many years ago, and I don't want to close schools again, the marginal cost of closing, the marginal savings of closing a school wasn't all that high. So I just wondered, but $2.3 million marginal cost seems, if that makes sense, to run a new school. Just, I'm not saying it's less. I just am surprised at how much it is.
So the last time we looked at that was a decade ago
Yeah, you're
or
right.
more.
Inflation,
So,
yeah.
those costs have gone up. And there is expansion of programs. Preschool is going in out there, which is new. So, I mean, there are multiple pieces that are sort of different than.
I just wish it wasn't that much, but wishing doesn't make it so, does it? Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. Other questions, comments? All right, still some more checkpoints along the way in this process, and we appreciate everybody sticking with us. Thank you again, Bill.
May I excuse
course.
myself? Yeah. So for a little clarity, as we talked earlier this evening, last week being my lesson on the RFIs flying all around, and I think essentially the board was really good because you copied each other. And so there wasn't a lot of redundancy in there. There was maybe adding on to it. So I would suggest doing that. And if it is an RFI, as we spoke earlier, if you can put in the subject line so it's really clear, and then Laura and I can rotate those into the forms. And then I heard some RFI and questions and then some directions. So I guess in some of these directives, as you work with the board on clarifying what those directives are for us, would be helpful for staff.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we, seems to be maybe a little bit of fatigue. We've been in meetings since 4:30 this afternoon, and I know you've been with us. So I'm not sure I want to go around and check in with the board right now about individual board member desires, but we will do that because we certainly don't want you to feel like you're taking direction from any single board member. Yeah. But board members, the message is for RFIs, just put that in your subject head and the subject of your inquiry, and that'll help Joe and Laura keep track of them. Is that okay, Joe? Yeah. And then we do want to do the, although we may not have the budget completely formed by May 23rd, we do want to set aside that hour for a community dialogue on the 2017-18 budget. I think with that, agenda setting is the next topic. We did have an agenda setting meeting. That was almost 5.5 hours ago now. But we did outline what's coming up, both on the regular meeting agendas and the work sessions for May, and we got a little bit of discussion about June. If you weren't at the meeting, Laura can get you this document, which is very helpful in keeping track of what we have queued up. Any other comments about agenda setting? Oh, it is? Okay, great. Well, hearing none, I think we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.